Howdy, y'all. Welcome to Rollin' with the Punches. I'm Jessie Punch, and I'm so happy you're here. If you're not watching on YouTube, highly recommend, as always. Oh, and if you are watching on YouTube, you will have seen that my co-host is back in studio with me this week, the SO Pup. But per usual, he has already left the occasion and brought all the enthusiasm that he brings when he does decide to show up to work. But anyways, once again, if you're not watching on YouTube, highly recommend, because this week we shot in the middle of Tricon Garage, in the middle of prep for race week, so you'll be able to hear it. We are right there in the race shop, but more on that in a second. How old did everybody feel this weekend watching Keelan Harvick race against Kevin Harvick? Thoughts? Prayers, questions, comments, concerns? Pretty wild to see. I mean, Keelan's been around. It wasn't really shocking to see Keelan, but it was something about seeing him and Kevin both in their fire suits on the grid together. It's like my brain couldn't compute it. I'm still getting used to Kevin not being full-time in NASCAR anymore, and now seeing him out there with Keelan, I'm still getting used to Keelan not being a child. He is still a child, but you know what I'm saying, okay? You get the point. The two of them competing against each other this weekend out in the Cars Tour West, and Keelan won. Pretty cool. Pretty cool career moment for the two of them, and pretty tough moment for everybody else who had to watch and feel absolutely ancient this weekend. But, I mean, hey, it's the up-and-coming stars of the sport, so guess we should get used to it. Speaking of up-and-coming stars in our sport, my interview this week is with Corey Heim. And if you aren't familiar with Corey, up-and-coming stars is honestly probably an understatement. He is actively becoming one of the major players, not only in the truck series, but all across NASCAR. He is very much becoming a regular name. He's full-time in the trucks, only in his third season, though, of full-time in the truck series, and he already has 15 wins, 4 of those this season. But not only that, he has many starts, both in Xfinity and Cup, and we'll see him on the track in all 3 of those this season, as we already have multiple times this year. So to say that Corey is impressive is, again, an understatement. But for as much as we've seen him on the racetrack, it was really cool for me to be able to sit down with him and actually kind of get to know who he is beyond just driving the race car. He has so much to offer when it comes to personality, and he's so intelligent, even just emotionally intelligent. In fact, something that I really took away from that interview, something that kind of resonated with me, was a conversation we were having sparked this idea of, you know, we spend so much time chasing goals and accomplishments, and when we reach those achievements, we celebrate them. And that's so important to celebrate. We know how important it is to celebrate our accomplishments. But on top of that, it's important for us to be intentional about celebrating everything that we had to do and were successful in to get us there. So mentally handling all of the stress that was sent our way, physically handling that, emotionally regulating everything that we needed to do to get ourselves in the position to actually have that achievement. And it's more than just the idea of, you know, enjoying the journey on the way to the destination. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. It's this idea of really taking the time to pat ourselves on the back and compliment ourselves on personal growth beyond just the achievement that we're really, you know, checking off of the list. So that's something that I really took away from this interview and resonated with me, and I'm excited to see what resonates with you guys. So without further ado, here is Corey Heim. It's actually funny, we did a feature a couple years ago where we were like, let's test drivers and, like, you know, put headphones on them and see if they can hear what we're saying. Yeah, it was like a trend. Yeah. Well, we didn't exactly think that through. I mean, we work at a racetrack. Everybody can read lips. Like, everybody went in there and
so they're
just
really
like,
good at it?
Yeah, everybody just killed it.
I don't know if I can do that. I feel like I struggle with that.
Yeah. It's an acquired talent, I guess, over the years.
Take some practice.
Exactly.
I'm inside the race car, though. A lot of people are reading lips outside of the race car.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. You haven't had the same practice that we've had.
Don't have those struggles.
We're a little more advanced than you are at that.
I'll get there one day.
Yeah, you'll learn. You'll get there. Well, Corey Heim, welcome to Rollin' with the Punches.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Here being the middle of Tricon Garage. We just kind of set up here, middle of race week. Thought we'd make ourselves at home. So thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Welcome in.
Do you have a nickname?
A lot of people do the Heim time thing.
Sure.
I think that's kind of the main one. But when I was a kid, a lot of people would call me, or my dad, I think mostly would call me Honey Badger. I don't know. I think it was
Call you
like
what?
Honey Badger.
Why?
You ever seen that like really funny video on YouTube about the honey badger? It's like this guy, I don't know if he's British or Australian, but he's like narrating what honey badgers do. Well,
you just pulled that out of a very deep
you know what I'm talking about,
part
though?
of my brain.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
It's
they
an
talk
old
about
video,
like how
right?
crazy and like wild they are. When I was in quarter midgets, I caused a lot of chaos. So my dad started calling me that, I think, and it sort of stuck through those days. But once I got into the late model scene, the Heim time thing kind of came along.
That was what I was going to ask, is when you kind of started doing that, and obviously, like, naturally, Heim time, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But did you plan it? Like, was it the first time you did it? How did that really start?
No, I've always been I don't know, I've never been one to like want a nickname or, wish that upon myself. I guess I'm just kind of like a really low-key guy. So
You don't really practice your like victory lane celebrations. You weren't like that kind of
not
person.
Really,
yeah.
right. But I think a lot of late model, or I shouldn't say a lot of, but a few late model reporting like companies or news writers or whatever started kind of using that in like victory lane, or I don't really know who exactly pioneered it by any means, but it definitely started in the late model days, like early on when I started winning races. And by the time I made it to ARCA and started winning there, that's kind of when it surfaced. And I feel like Jamie Little says it all the time. She kind of pioneered it on Fox, and I feel like it kind of stuck throughout different, like on social media and other broadcasts and whatnot.
So it was that ARCA win that was the first time you actually got out and did the whole
I think it was
Heim
the
time deal?
Daytona 2022 ARCA win. I'm pretty sure.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So it was kind of like given to you, and then eventually you just played into it.
In a
and thought,
sense,
you know
yeah.
what?
I think I made up the wrist thing. I remember Damian Lillard was always my favorite basketball player. I never had like a team. I'm a big Pittsburgh sports fan, and I kind of liked the Milwaukee Bucks for a while. So when he went to Milwaukee a couple years ago, I kind of like studied him and liked him a lot. And he always just had that Dame time celebration. So kind of copied it off of him, but I made it my own too.
I love that. You didn't copy him. Your Heim time. I mean, it makes it
Same
quite
but
honestly
different, yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
But that's really cool. How are you a Pittsburgh sports fan? You're from Georgia.
From Georgia. My dad was born and raised in Pittsburgh, and that's where I met my mom. And I did like Atlanta sports growing up, but I made very frequent visits to my family in Pittsburgh, and a lot of my family is still up there. Like being born in Georgia, I think my mom's brother's family, so my cousins, lived in Georgia, but that was it. My entire extended family was in Pittsburgh. So visiting them and kind of being grown up into that sports scene, they're very passionate fans, if you didn't know that, up in Pittsburgh. So being kind of implemented into that at a young age was the main culprit of it, for sure.
Did you play any other sports before you started really racing full time?
I never did, no. I was a big baseball and hockey fan growing up. I'm now kind of a big football fan now that my Steelers are trying their best to come back. But
yeah, I wasn't going to say it. But,
yeah, they're struggling
it's a
right
tough time
now.
to
But
be
we had like a good period in the 2010s where they were decent. But
it doesn't help that the Eagles are like out there stealing your thunder.
Yeah, they're the
Sorry.
best team in PA for sure,
that didn't help,
unfortunately.
sorry.
But yeah, so I was actually a big hockey fan growing up, and I almost tried out for hockey, but I didn't know how to skate quite yet. So my mom told me if I wanted to play hockey, obviously I need to know how to ice skate. And well, I think I was like 8 or 9 years old. I was already racing at the time. I started when I was 5, so I kind of was going to do both. And being in Georgia, like ice skating wasn't kind of a necessity like it is up north. So I had no idea how to do it. My mom took me to my first skating lesson, and I was 10 minutes late or something to the skating lesson, and all the kids and the instructor were already in the middle of the ice rink, sitting down, like kind of just briefing and like saying what's going to happen. Anyway, so I show up late, like I said, and I kind of get stage fright because I have no idea how to skate, and I didn't want to go out to the middle of the ice and bust my ass and get laughed at by all these kids that I haven't met yet. I'm like inevitably going to be friends with them at some point if I'm doing these skating lessons. And I got stage fright and I didn't do it. And my mom got so mad at me that she went to the car in the parking lot, and I was like, okay, well, we'll just try again next time, no big deal. And I sit down and I'm trying to get these knots undone on my skates, and I realized like, oh my God, I can't get these skates off. like they're stuck on my feet. I cannot get these knots undone. My mom tied them down as tight as she could.
And now you have to
And now I have to get
her.
back to the car. And I'm like too afraid to ask any of these people in the building if they can help me. So I walk with my bare ice skates across the asphalt to my mom's car and just obliterate these ice skates, brand new. And they're like pretty nice. I don't know what the brand was. I'm not very educated, but brand new ice skates, destroyed, never went back. That was the end of that.
And that was it. That was the end of the
That
ice
was it.
skating career.
That was it.
Wow. It was over before it even started.
That is correct. Yeah, we were
That's
late, and
so funny.
and that's it. Yep.
It's so funny to think about too. Hockey sure makes sense, but ice skating and racing, you're so right. Like, it was easier to get you to a racetrack than it was probably to find an ice skating rink for you to learn how to skate. So
Yeah.
the fact that you were like, maybe I'll give it a try, and it wasn't for you. Well, then
Yeah.
again, I guess we never know if it was for you because you never
It was meant to be,
hit
though.
the ice.
I mean, it was meant to be because I was kind of on the fence about racing at that point. It was a complete hobby for me. I really enjoyed it, but I hadn't made it like my passion yet. I mean, I was very passionate about NASCAR, like a very big fan, but I didn't know if I wanted to do it for the rest of my life at that point. So I was
Yeah.
sort of on the fence, and I like to think back of that day and kind of think like maybe it was meant to be that happened, and pursue my path of racing because I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot now.
I love that mindset. That's so true. It's like the what do they call it? The burnt toast theory. Have you heard of this?
I don't think so.
It's the idea of, everyone's been there. You're having a morning, and like you burn your toast, and it sets you back 5-10 minutes or whatever.
Right.
And it's kind of that mindset of, instead of, oh my God, I burnt my toast, my day's ruined. It happened for a reason. Maybe you were 5 minutes behind because
Car
there was an
accident
incident
or-
on the road,
yeah.
and that could have been you. It's just this idea of you're
Yeah.
always placed where you're supposed to be for a reason, and just trusting that and knowing that you may not know it at the time when you're hauling your ice skates across the
Yeah,
concrete
you never know.
in full shame to your mom's car too. Like having to, I'm sure that was like the worst walk of shame to
Oh,
have
yeah.
to say, Mom, I'm actually done with this.
And at the time, I didn't know that these skates were going to get ruined by the asphalt because I just didn't know
Sure,
any
you
better. I
weren't
figured
exactly
like,
an
I'll
ice
just walk
skating expert,
across and
yeah.
like it'll be fine. They'll just blade it. You know how they sharpen the skates or whatever. No big deal. But it took me 30 seconds of a rant from my mom to realize that they were done for.
That was
So,
it.
That was it.
Have you been ice skating since?
Yeah, I like to go to down in Charlotte, Whitewater Center.
Oh, yeah.
They do the Christmas deal. That's really cool.
That's fun.
But for no other reason than just to see lights and kind of have fun. There's no, like, I still like hockey and stuff, but I would have only gone to pursue my hockey career at that point. But yeah, I've been down there a couple of times. It's pretty fun. Not good at it though.
Well, and you know that like when you go to those places, you already know confidently that there's going to be somebody else out there that's busting their ass.
Yeah.
And so if I do, I'm not alone.
100%.
Yeah, that's a lot different than having to go to ice skating practice.
Yeah, I'm
and
kind of
bust
like
ass.
a one leg push kind of guy. I keep my left leg down, just kind of push with my right.
There you go.
I can't double leg it. Not that advanced.
So you mentioned that you like baseball. You threw out the first pitch
I did.
recently at the Kansas City Royals game. Have you
Attempted
done
to.
that before?
Nope, that was my first pitch. I think I've thrown a baseball maybe. I could probably count on two hands how many times I've legitimately tried to throw a baseball in my life. So I was actually really nervous to do that. My palms were really sweaty, and I didn't expect that to happen. So like I'd actually practiced with my girlfriend early in the day. We were at Kansas that weekend, and I got pretty good at it. But then you walk up close to the mound, and you realize your palms are starting to get sweaty.
And your hands
and
are
you're
like a little
I don't know if
shakier
this
than
thing's
normal.
gonna like stick in my hand when I throw it. Yeah.
Okay.
I give myself like for a first time, I feel like that was like a B+ effort.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, I mean it was a ball. I feel like if it was a lefty batter, I may have taken him out, but it was okay.
You got it to the plate,
I
my
got it to
guy.
the plate,
I know
yeah.
that sounds like it's a easy thing to
don't know
do,
if you
but you'd
saw-
be surprised.
I don't know if you saw Dean Thompson's first pitch. Hate to call him out.
I heard about
It
it.
was really bad.
Yeah.
That made me feel really good about myself. Yeah.
So, okay, I'm glad you mentioned that because I always wondered with that. Do you practice? Like, you're an adult. Do you, like, go out to the front yard and have somebody hold the mitt and quite literally practice the first pitch? You did that with your girlfriend.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Kansas. I mean, I did it the day of the game, so I wasn't out there every day of the week practicing and making sure my form was good. But
Where did you do this?
It was tech day at Kansas for the truck race, so the day before the truck race, and we just went to like the motorhome lot and found
At
a good
Kansas
alleyway
Speedway?
at Kansas Speedway. Yeah, in the infield. I was digging.
That's hilarious. She had a
Yeah.
glove, a mitt, and everything, and was just
Yeah, I got her to go in the catching position, squat down, and
what an awesome girlfriend.
yeah, had
That's
to do
so
a lot
fun.
of snake runs back and forth every time I missed. But I was pretty worried about it, honestly. Like I said, I was a little nervous and didn't want to get blasted. Bubba was messing with me a bunch at 23:11, so I had to show him up on that one.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, even people that played baseball or have baseball experience, to your point, getting up there and throwing out a first pitch, it's a totally different thing. So for you to not have had that experience and go out there and get it over the plate, not embarrass yourself,
Yeah.
then you did good.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you don't even realize too. Like, for example, your palms getting sweaty is one thing that people don't think about. But also when you get up there, first of all, it feels a lot farther than you realize. Like when I walked up to the field to begin with, everyone was talking about when you walk up to the plate, it's going to feel so far away. And I look at the field and I'm like, that does not seem that bad. And then you actually walk yourself up to the plate and look at the catcher and you're like, this is a hike. And then you don't realize when you throw the ball, like obviously I'm not a baseball player, so I didn't know this before, but the mound, since it's like kind of a hill almost, you know, you're stepping downward when you're throwing. And I think that's what got Dean, if you watch the video. Like it's not an even, you're like taking a step downward when you throw it. I guess it just helps for the pitcher's momentum and stuff.
Yeah.
But that caught me off guard too. There's a couple things that you don't realize before you do it. So I can see why a lot of celebrities get up there, and even when they're like athletes, I remember McGregor threw one really poorly. It just looks like they get caught off guard a lot.
That makes so much sense. Because, you think about it, pitchers, you're like, okay, the momentum, but to get an average person up there, that might throw them off a little bit.
100%.
Well, you're a quick learner, clearly, so you did just
Appreciate
fine.
that.
And we've seen that behind the wheel of a race car. I mean, this is, on paper, the busiest season that you've had, doing not full-time, but full-time in trucks, and then part-time in both Xfinity and the Cup Series. How are you handling all of this? Not even from a mental competitive standpoint, but just from a personal life standpoint. It's got to be a lot.
Yeah, it's a good question. I remember last year when I had signed up to do the Legacy Motor Club backup situation, and then Eric got hurt. He had a back injury, and I filled in for 2 races back-to-back. And I had a previously scheduled race at Nashville, 23:11. That was going to be like my first scheduled start, but I had kind of laid up those opportunities with Eric Jones getting hurt. And I was pretty exhausted, like just having that short notice and already having all my truck stuff going on. We're finally starting to run really good last year, winning consistently, but putting a lot of effort towards that. And then layering that on top of my first ever Cup start, something you dream of your whole life.
And doing it at Dover, not to interrupt you, but Dover is a tough racetrack.
I was so stressed out just because it was Dover too. I'd only seen the place one other time in an ARCA car prior to that weekend, so I had very little experience. Really intimidating track. But I think in the last year I've really understood sort of how to play out my week a little bit better. When I was in ARCA and I didn't have a whole lot going on during the week prep-wise, I remember just being kind of bored all the time, like, oh, I can't wait to be in the top 3 series, so my schedule gets more filled out and I can actually like occupy myself throughout the week. But the moment that I actually filled out my schedule and I was busy from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day, I was kind of miserable for a good 2 months. And when I sort of made sure to leave myself some personal time, but also just execute the things that I needed to prepare on, it's like made me a lot happier, I think, overall. Just like people, I'm sure everyone's been there at some point in their life when they just are hammered busy, don't get a lot of personal time. Before you kind of sign up for all those things, you think you can just work all day and be fine like everyone else, but it's truly really difficult to not get any personal life time during your day.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's actually something I talk about a lot because you said it, I'm sure everyone's probably been there. I've definitely been there. Traveling full time with this circus, you just put your head down and you tell yourself, I'm supposed to work hard. And before you know it, you pick your head up and you're like, it's been months. What have I've just been on autopilot. And hearing you talk about kind of having to schedule it out, it makes me think of a word that I've really had to embrace over the last couple of years. It's being intentional. And I feel like that word just comes up all the time for me because it's similar to what you're saying. I have to take control and be intentional about setting the time aside for me or for my significant other or for my family, or else you just get flown around by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, and for me it was hard to, like, I didn't even realize that I was getting to the point where I was miserable last year until people started pointing out that the quality of what I was doing was going down and my attitude hadn't, hadn't been the best the last couple weeks or couple races or whatever. And I didn't even realize it. But when I started thinking about it, it's like, dang, like they're probably right. Like I listened to my feedback at the racetrack the past weekend when we didn't run very great. I wasn't very positive. I was kind of bringing people down with me. But, sometimes it takes people to kind of point that out too. And when I think back on it, I'm like, dang, I was kind of like just kind of a dick, at the end of the day. So, making yourself happier in your personal life, I think is a big deal. And it really relates to the work side. Even if you don't realize it, it definitely makes a difference.
That affects everything. Even just your physical, everything about you. If you're not happy mentally, I mean, it breaks down into like quite literally chemicals in your brain. If those aren't where they need to be, then your whole body doesn't function correctly. And for you to say that somebody had that conversation with you, that is not an easy conversation to have. So what a blessing that you have people in your life that care about you enough to say, hey, we notice a difference. And if you don't mind me asking, who did finally kind of pull you aside that it resonated with you that you needed to make a change?
It was actually Scott on my truck team, my crew chief. He was the first guy that sort of said something, and he made it kind of a point to sit me down, just have a one-on-one personal conversation and just say, hey, like, I know these past couple of weeks haven't gone very well after starting the season really well. It wasn't, I didn't take it as he called me out or anything. I just kind of took it on the chin and was like, okay, like, I need to probably make a change for myself. I mean, he knows my schedule. Like, we talk about it on a weekly basis, like, what's my openings to meet here and here. And I'm like, I can't this week. I got to do this, this, and this. Like, it's not going to happen. And then you go to the racetrack and your performance is down. And the things that you could have been talking about during these time slots were used up on some other things that are probably not as important at the end of the day. So he was the first one to really sit me down, and I made some changes to my schedule to just get myself some me time and catch up on sleep, and it definitely made a huge difference going into the later part of the regular season and the playoffs last year.
That's something that I am incredibly passionate about. I actually met a girl this year. Her name is Liz Beecroft, and she is a sports psychologist, but that sounds so stuffy, a sports psychologist. She's so cool, like super young, super stylish, and she works mostly with athletes in high pressure situations. And so I met her and we talked about just getting more into the sport, because it's somebody like you. It's such a great example of you're chasing every opportunity to do what you're so great at and what you've worked for your whole life, that sometimes it's difficult and not always focused on in NASCAR as it is in other sports, that you guys need that time and that help just mentally to keep yourself regulated and balanced.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stress that comes with it too. I think a lot of people overlook the fact that, perfect example is on Sunday for me, one tiny little misjudgment for me in the cup race completely just took myself out of it, And I feel like in football, you can have a bad play and miss a tackle, but you get right back up and you line up on the line of scrimmage and you go again, And I think that's where a lot of the stress comes from. A lot of drivers, I feel like, fail to realize that, but as far as where the stress comes from. But it's just, man, you're playing with a really fine line, especially in the Cup Series. Like, I mean, once again, one slight misjudgment on my part, I hooked myself and it was over, And you prepare for that stuff for the last 6 weeks. I've been doing sim and meetings and all this junk to get ready for the race, and felt really good going into it and had a really good run up to that point. But it's certainly important to just make sure you're in the right headspace and really be able to help yourself execute going into a weekend.
Are you the kind of person that's really hard on yourself? What kind of relationship, or here's a better question. How would your friends and even your teammates describe you as a person, do you think?
That's a really good question. I feel like I've been really solid this year specifically about not letting things affect me too bad. I've had a couple of things go wrong in these truck races where we've flat out dominated the race, notably the short tracks this year. And just both times, we have some sort of contact at the end of the race that has taken me out of it. And we've had literal perfect days up to this point. We were top 5 or leading practice, qualifying the pole, lead all the laps, and then 10 to go, you're junk, And that's probably the worst case scenario from a packing up and leaving the racetrack scenario, as far as just like, damn, we did everything perfect and we didn't win. It wasn't even our fault. There's nothing we could have done about it. But I feel like this year I've done a really good job of just picking myself back up and understanding, like, hey, we had the speed, we executed correctly, we were in position. That's just part of racing. It's part of NASCAR racing at the end of the day. So from a one word, how would they describe me scenario? I don't exactly know, but I feel like I'm pretty resilient. I think that would be a good one to use.
Well, that answer alone gave me a lot of insight into just how your brain works, because I think even going back to what we mentioned a minute ago with just the difference in NASCAR and other sports and really not even having that mental support, it's very rare in other sports that you work as hard as you work and you go out there and you do everything you can and it still doesn't work out for you. A lot of times in other sports, it's like in school, it's that what you put in, you get that direct return.
Yeah.
And racing is so not like that. And that has to be such a mental fork, because you have done everything right and you can still have a day like you talked about. So for you, I guess what I'm getting at is for you to, at your age and at where you are in your career, be able to level with that. We see a lot of young drivers still get so frustrated with the idea of it not working out for them, even though they put all that effort in. So for you to just have that kind of level head, it's very admirable. It says a lot about you. It gives me leadership qualities from you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I think a lot of it comes from just the people I'm around too. You know, I feel like from a young age, which you see a lot nowadays, is these younger kids being able to move up to Charlotte, or if they're already in Charlotte, move up and kind of almost halfway live with their teams, and a lot of them being in their 30s or older, and I feel like that helps kind of that maturity process a lot faster. So I've been very blessed to be around good people. I mean, I moved up here when I was 18 years old, so I could have been with the wrong group and kind of went down the wrong mental side of things as far as where I go in my career directionally. But I've been very blessed to be with a lot of good people, and I think that really that plays into it a lot.
You came up through Cars Tour, right?
That's correct.
What do you think now about seeing the way that series has just taken off?
Yeah, it's similar but different. I feel like the racing quality and the talent is actually very similar. I mean, I raced with, I remember the year I ran full time, I think I battled with Josh Berry and Lane Riggs for the championship, and those are two guys that are obviously super talented and winning right now in NASCAR. Josh was obviously doing really good in the Cup Series, so kind of goes to show you that I feel like the talent has always been there in some way, shape, or form, but
people are just watching closer now.
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's almost taken the place as NASCAR's like fourth division, and I feel like it's kind of right there with ARCA in a sense that the car store is probably deeper in the sense of talent. There's a lot of good guys in it, where ARCA, I mean, just financially, it seems like there's only 3 or 4 guys that are kind of competing on a normal basis. But I really feel like it's not a NASCAR top level by any means, but I can certainly see it being competition-wise just as good as a truck or Xfinity race at times. I mean, I ran 3 races last year, and I mean, it was a dogfight to finish top 5. It was really tough. And you see guys like Larson come down and run it and struggle too. And that guy can pretty much drive anything. So it's certainly not easy, and it's really taken the place as a NASCAR division, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. It does seem like that is kind of the where people seem to look for the next up-and-coming talent in NASCAR, and then ARCA is now almost like the half step where you can get the experience on some of those bigger racetracks to then set you up to jump in from there. Well, it kind of then brings me to this conversation of how different it is to jump from series to series, and I'm talking to the best person right here to have that conversation, because with you, not just jumping from series to series, but doing it consistently on a weekend basis, that is not something that every race car driver can do. First, how difficult is it? I mean, really, truly give me some insight, because these cars, especially now, even to Xfinity to Cup, I mean, such a world of difference.
It was definitely really, really difficult when I first started doing it. I've been fortunate to always sort of have opportunities of a mixed bag. Notably in 2022, I did, I think, 8 to 10 ARCA races and 16 truck races, and it was like every weekend I was switching back and forth, but I wasn't points racing that year, so I could kind of individualize each series and not be like, okay, well, I'm championship racing in one and I'm not in the other. Yeah, there's no prioritizing. It's just execute on both of them, and they're equal opportunities at the end of the day. Of course, truck racing is on a higher pedestal, if you will, but equal opportunities at the end of the day. But I remember in 2023, I ran a full truck. That was my first full truck series schedule, and I also got a mixed bag of Xfinity races as well. And I was still trying to figure out the truck. and I had my first opportunity to kind of show what I had in the Xfinity Series. And I think Darlington was my first time doing both in the same day, in the sense that it was extremely difficult. Getting out of the truck, first time at Darlington, kind of taking a deep breath and just kind of understanding what the heck happened. You walk over to the Xfinity car, and it could not be more different. Like the truck is all momentum. You're pretty much wide open in 1 and 2, and all but in 3 and 4 as well. Xfinity car, you're lifting halfway down the straightaway, halfway sideways the entire time, and the qualifying between the two just completely like derailed me the entire weekend, because once again, it's like full throttle in the truck and you're using a ton of brake in the Xfinity car. The brake markers are way different, and then just the mental side of it, in the sense that you're still trying to get used to the track. Once again, it's Darlington, but then you're making your debut in the Xfinity car, trying your best to kind of put yourself on this stage, you know, in one of the biggest series you've ever raced in your life. Very mentally challenging, no doubt.
Yeah, it's, you know, the opportunity that's ahead of you, but you're also like, I'm juggling 7 balls right now. Like this, it's one of those things where you're like, I'm so happy that it's here, but also right now, right now with all of these other things. It reminds me a lot of your Cup Series start. As you mentioned a minute ago, you were in the program there and knew that you were heading towards driving Cup cars, but they said, hey, we need you in the car this weekend. Jones is hurt. How much experience did you have in the Cup Series car, and how much notice did you have that you were going to race at Dover?
I think I had 3 days notice before practice that I was going to race. I was actually at Talladega when Eric wrecked, and I remember watching that. I was like, holy crap, this might put me in a Cup car. Like, that was a big deal. And then he went to the care center, and I think he was cleared to leave. And I watched his interview in the stands at the track under caution, and looked totally fine. I figured, okay, like I'm probably good to go for next week. And then I get a notification from one of my buddies, and they said, like, hey, you might want to watch this Bob Pockrass interview that he did, or maybe like a quote that he pulled from Eric. And it was about him going back to the hospital because of his vertebrae or something in his back hurting. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. So I drove home with my dad from Talladega in his camper, and I remember the entire time I was just watching Dover stuff, because I had never been there to begin with. Already had plans to race the Xfinity car there, but once again, going back and forth between Xfinity and Cup was going to be really challenging. So,
and you still hadn't even officially been given the word. This
correct,
was just you
that was like a precaution on my part,
yeah.
and I was like, I'm probably not going to race. I mean, how often does this happen where people actually have to, you know, sit at home? But just wanted to make sure I at least had an idea. And it was kind of annoying in a sense that the entire week I really had no idea. And I think till Wednesday or Thursday, they never gave me the absolute okay. So I was just all week, I was like nervous. I was like, is this how it's going to start? Is this how I'm going to make my Cup debut? But I never had the absolute okay where I could kind of mentally accept that and just lock in from there. The entire week was just kind of spent being like, who knows, you know, we'll see. But yeah, I think I finally got the word, I think Wednesday night. And at that point I went to sim pretty much all day Thursday. Still, once again, had to focus on the Xfinity stuff, but they were really understanding of kind of what was going on from the Sam Hunt side. And yeah, I think it was really overall a good weekend for me, but extremely stressful. It was probably the most nervous I've ever been. Struggling to eat that weekend, so that was tough.
Hearing you say that is so interesting, because I remember talking to you. I did an interview with you that weekend. And the reason that I remember this interview so specifically is because, and I doubt you remember this, but we were obviously just getting some sound from you about you making your first start. But where I was standing, the sun was in my eyes, and I just cried
I remember that,
through the entire interview.
I do remember that.
Yeah, and you were just like talking about your like first Cup Series start, and I'm just bawling over there. Like, couldn't do anything about it. And I just remember, like, I walked away from that interview and I had makeup like coming down my face, and I was like, that was just embarrassing.
You held through though. It was pretty impressive.
I got very emotional.
You were like sitting there just trying your best to keep your eyes open the whole time. I'm the same way though. I have extremely sensitive eyes.
Yeah, well, I didn't know I had extremely sensitive eyes until that moment right there. So yeah. But no, I thought about that. I was like, that was one of my more awkward interviews. But what I also remember from that was you just were so confident. And that's understandably so. You're talking to the media. You're not going to go out there and say, I'm nervous. But it's just funny then to hear kind of the backstory of where you're at now versus that day of how you carried yourself. You did such a great job of just going out there and doing what you're supposed to do. You finished the race. To finish your first Cup Series race and then at Dover, that alone is a very, very big accomplishment.
Yeah, I remember the seat mold that we did too was pretty much last minute as well. I mean, we had like a rough mold that I could fill in at Eric or John Hunter at any time with, but I mean, they're never completely comfortable, and they're always kind of like last-second scenarios, but we had just enough time to do my own, and I remember being so uncomfortable that entire race. Like, I didn't really know much about, I mean, there's a couple of differences between a truck seat and a cup seat and what they require and all the extra foam and whatnot, but I didn't exactly know what I needed because I'd never sat in one before 3 days prior to the race. And I remember my headrest was vibrating so bad because we used this really hard foam. So the entire race, my head's shaking around really bad at Dover, all this load on my back. I'm super uncomfortable. And I think I had like both of my legs go numb or something that race too. So it was a mess. But when the race was done, I mean, we had some decent high moments. I mean, started pretty much last, being first car out to qualify, and then trying to obviously just figure it out was pretty tough. But I think I climbed up to the mid to high 20s at one point, which was good for me, and obviously learned a lot throughout that day. So thinking back on it, it was a huge struggle. I was a nervous wreck, and there were some low moments, but I think that's kind of how everyone's first Cup start goes. You know, I mean, they've probably been better than mine for sure, but I feel like it's just always a lot. If you really care about what you're doing, you're going to be nervous, you're going to be stressed, and I was certainly nothing short of that.
Do you remember how you felt getting out of the car?
I think I almost passed out because my legs had no blood in them because they were numb. So when I first got out of the car, physically I was getting ready to pass out because all the blood rushed back into my legs, and I was like wobbly and all over the place, and people were trying to interview me. A lot of people don't realize when people are like winded and they get out of a car and they try to do an interview and talk, it makes them even more winded. I don't know if has anyone ever told you that?
It makes them even more what?
Even more winded. Like they're about to, like if say I'm like exhausted after a really hot road course race or something, I'm like kind of on the verge of passing out, but I take a couple breaths and I'm like good to knock out an interview. As soon as I start talking, maybe it's just me, but as soon as I start talking and trying to explain what happened in the race, I'll instantly get lightheaded again. And I think there's been like 3 or 4 occasions in my life, mostly in ARCA when I was like kind of out of shape, trying my best to do my interviews after I got out. But 3 or 4 times in my life where I've almost passed out in interviews just because I like just had collected my breath before that.
That's one of the hardest parts too about doing those post-race jobs is because, you know, like we're journalists. So like my producer's like, you know, get in there and like ask me these questions. You got to get the reaction. But like, I know you guys and you're people. And I'm like, come on. Like, I don't want to insert myself into that. So it's always a tough
Have you had any like
balance.
really bad experiences with interviews as far as people just like giving you really bad attitude or anything like that before?
I haven't had anything too bad. Yeah. Honestly, and these aren't even bad, but anything I've had where anyone's like waved me off for an interview or kind of gotten disgruntled and like turned it away has been in more local short track series or like down in New Smyrna for World Series. Just,
I can see that.
Yeah, some of those guys that, and I can't say that I blame them. You know, it's they've put so much time and effort into racing and getting the car there that in the media is not something they're used to either. So
not as much on the line, sponsor corporate wise either.
Yeah, no, everybody, once you hit a certain level, everybody knows they've got too many people to please to be disgruntled with us. Oh, man. But talking about this season, you mentioned earlier just trying to mentally compartmentalize and prioritize, really, the series. And looking at your truck series season already, 4 wins already this season. You guys are rocking and rolling. But you also had a stellar season last year. How does this year feel at this time compared to what it did last year?
Yeah, I feel like last year we, obviously had a really good year. I think we won 6 by the time it was all said and done. And I feel like at this point in the year, we had a pretty similar year statistically. But I feel like the speed has been just more consistent throughout these races. I remember like last year we struggled bad at both Martinsville's. There's a couple, I remember Bristol, we struggled pretty bad in the spring. And it seemed like we were either completely dominant or just kind of like a 6th, 7th place car, just sort of there, but nothing special. But this year I feel like it's been just about every race we've been on it. And a lot of that plays into just my personal experience. I mean, it was only my 2nd full-time year in Chucks at that point, so I was still sort of learning some tracks. I hadn't been to a couple of them before. And with the big schedule mix-up this year, there's going to be a couple this year that I'm going to get used to as well. Michigan, for instance, I've never seen it never seen it in a truck, and this is my first time being there this weekend. So that's going to be tough. But as far as what we've hit so far, we've just been so rock solid every single weekend. And the experience I've had with these guys behind me too has played off a lot. You know, I feel like coming into the Truck Series, you don't really see a lot of driver crew combos that just stick forever. Whereas the Cup Series, you'll see guys that last decades, you know. But,
Right.
you know, I feel like for me to have my third full-time year with Scott Zipadelli and this 11 crew and being able to retain that entire team year to year has done us wonders. And I feel like we've really showed it throughout this year as well.
Well, and to that point, these are the same guys that you surrounded yourself with last year when you had that 6-win season and unfortunately came in second in the championship. How did you guys as a team bounce back from that? Because, I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. That sucks. Like, you went out there and you dominated that season. And then by the nature of how this playoff system runs, you came in second in the, championship battle at Phoenix. As a team, how do you get through that? And then how do you regroup for this year and take off the way that you did?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot more difficult to get through it in 2023. I think that was a much more tough pill to swallow. I think we were the best championship forward truck, if not the best overall truck that day. And then, pretty much got taken out of contention halfway through the race, halfway through stage 3 rather. But 2024, we just did not quite have it. I remember practicing and thinking, my first couple laps was like, wow, this thing's stout. Like, there's no way anyone's going to beat us. Like, perfect off the truck. That's all you can ask for, really fast. And as that 50-minute practice went by, we started looking over at the 98, and we're like, damn, like, we got some competition. I mean, this thing's really good. And it's always tough when your truck's perfect handling-wise, and there's someone that's still a little bit better than you. Because, like, what do? You can't adjust anything. You're already, in that window of being right where you want to be balance-wise, and you kind of get that stuck feeling. And, going into race day, which I think we practiced the night before, qualified and raced the day of the race. So going into qualifying, I knew we had a shot. I mean, we were right with the 98, but if you asked me after my first run how we were going to be, I was like, oh, we're going to smoke them. And then, as practice went, like I said, just kind of like, okay, we got, something to work with here in the 98, and we're a good bit better than the other two, so we should be fine there. And then he pretty much, just kind of dominated the race. It was not much to it. I mean, I had a restart violation in stage 3 that set me back, and it was kind of an uphill climb from there, but we really just had nothing for him. So it was almost like it's just kind of how it goes. We never left the track feeling like we gave it away or anything, you know what I mean, like we did in 2023, but certainly sucks, no doubt. But I think it was just kind of one of those deals where we like, just didn't have it today, and on to the next.
It reminds me of a conversation that I had with Justin Allgaier, who is a veteran in that Xfinity series, and for so long chasing that championship. And we just talked about mentally compartmentalizing how much weight a title like that carries, and do you look at things like records? Like Kyle Busch loves hitting records. He loves, making history and claiming those numbers. But do you prioritize that kind of stuff, or do you just take it? How do you look at success?
It's a really good question. I've always been a week-to-week kind of guy. Like, I've never projected myself like a lot of people I know do, like vision boards and stuff, and kind of write out their goals for the year, like say, okay, had a really good 6-win season last year, let's go for 8 this year. Like, I've never thought of things that way, and I've never looked back at things that way either. It's like, well, realistically, if I look back at last year, I feel like I could have won 12 races by how much speed we had on a week-to-week basis, but we won 6. But I don't really think like that. I always just think kind of forward to the next one, and I'm not the type of person that looks back at 2023 championship, 2024 championship, and be like, dang, like, really should have got on that day. Like, I wish I could just redo that race and do something different. But at the same time, when you do hit those marks and hit those goals, I think it's a really good time to reflect and just feel good about what you've accomplished. And it's a sense of gratitude, for lack of a better word, to look back and understand, what you're doing is special. And I think what we've done over the last 2.5 years at Tricon has been very special. But once again, I don't look back, and it doesn't keep me up at night by any means that I haven't hit those goals that I'd want to at the end of the day.
Looking at Tricon, you guys are so cool. That's the best way to put it. Like, the truck series for so long has had I don't want to generalize, but it tends to have kind of a rough and grunge type of feel to it. You know, you've got your truck veterans, you see a lot of maybe older drivers, and you guys, what Tricon is building is so relatable. It's so new age. Even just the way you guys present yourself. Clearly, you as a team, young, relatable. You dress cool, and in your social media, you do the walking to and from the airplane and showing your race day fits. You're carrying yourselves like we see other professional sporting teams do, and that's really not something that we've seen in the Truck Series, especially from a team who is out there winning as well. Is this something that you guys made a conscious effort as a team to say, hey, we're gonna bring some really cool ambiance, some swag, for lack of a better word, this year? Or did it just come naturally based on who y'all are?
I mean, I don't know. I don't personally think I've like changed anything. I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty normal dude at the end of the day, but I've got to kind of hand it off to the creative team here at Tricon. You know, they've been really good as far as just being kind of caught up with the trends and kind of what's happening in the modern day world.
Even down to the sponsors, the merch, y'all's merch, everything. Yeah. You're hitting this younger demographic and something that hasn't been hit in NASCAR, but especially in the Truck Series before.
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think it's just a factor of kind of the personnel here and just the creative mindset. At the end of the day, my job is to get here and drive trucks and win races, and I feel like anything as far as them putting us out there, helping us sell T-shirts and helping us show personality, I think that's just kind of a cherry on top, you know. But they've done such a great job of, I feel like the people here just seem like they have like a really good attitude at all times. And I'm not going to name names or name teams, but I feel like I've been a lot of places where you kind of walk in the building and you're just like, man, this kind of sucks. Like, may build fast cars or trucks, but it's just like you don't want to walk in the building and hang out. It's just kind of like everyone seems like they want to go home, just get their work done and whatever. But I feel like this is a place where people are really motivated to show up, motivated to get better, have a lot of fun at the end of the day. And I feel like, you know, it really feels like people around you are doing what they love too. And that's what I love about this place.
So that air is genuine. That team love is genuine. But to your point, the social media team does a good job of making you guys look pretty cool.
No
Cooler
doubt.
than you are, maybe?
Probably, yeah.
All right, well, before I let you go, I do a segment with all my guests. It's called Long Story Short, because I'm the queen of saying long story short, and then we're here for the next, 3 hours. So feel free to make your questions or your answers as long or as short as possible. That's up to you. I got 3 questions for you. First one is, when's the last time that you cried?
Oh, last time that I cried. You know, I do get a little teared up at like some videos online about like dogs and stuff like that. That is like a soft spot in my heart. So I probably teared up at that.
Like TikTok video?
Yeah, just like YouTube or TikTok. I mean, I'm not the type of guy that's going to watch the, what is those commercials begging for donations for the dogs and like all
those ASPCA, like Sarah McLachlan. Yeah.
Yeah, I may have done that when I was a kid or something, but like that's not what gets me. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I'll cheer up at like dog videos sometimes. I think I cried when I turned 20 for some reason. I just felt like I was like a milestone in my life, and I was like, dang, like my teens are gone. This is a sad day for me. But that was 2 years ago now. So I don't know. I can't name a specific time. I've never really cried about races. I've never been super sad about races. Been angry for sure, but not to the point where I've cried. But maybe just like a sad dog video or something like that.
No, that's so relatable. Like, I can't tell you how many times I'm just like in the middle of my day scrolling TikTok, and then it's like a gut punch. And I'm like, why am I crying at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday because someone's ferret died on TikTok? And for whatever reason, I am now emotionally invested.
The exact same way. 100%.
Yeah, it's actually embarrassing, to be honest, but it's where we are. Okay, question number 2. When is the last time that you remember just feeling an immense amount of pride in something that you accomplished?
I feel like I've had a couple moments this year. Kansas Cup race felt really good to me. Hadn't been in a Cup car in like 11 months, and felt like I had really earned that opportunity to go out and run the 2311. And I remember after practice and qualifying, I think I qualified like 28th or something, so not great compared to my teammates. And I was just like, dang, like I gotta pull it together here, you know. Went to work overnight. Really felt very focused and confident going into that race, and it was just a really smooth, solid day. I mean, I picked off like 12 spots in the first stage, 12 spots in the second stage, found myself like I think 16th going into stage 3, and picked off a couple more, finished 13th, and I was like, damn, like I can do this. You know, it's like really hard for someone to look at something and that they really care about, I guess. Like for me, obviously I really care about my cup races and my truck races, prepare really hard for that. So for me to think about that, you know, gives me a lot of stress and anxiety that like, what if I don't do very good? What if my job's on the line if I don't succeed? But to go out and execute and kind of like revalidate yourself that you can do this and you are good enough, it definitely feels really good.
The way you presented that is so great, because you're so right. It's not just the results of I went out there and I did well, but it's you recognizing that I handled everything that was thrown at me, mentally, physically, all of the pressures, all of the personal, you know, nervousness or doubt that I may have. Your ability to not only perform, but handle all of that is absolutely something to be proud of.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Last question. What is one piece of media, so I mean like podcast, song, TV show, series, movie, whatever, website, that you recommend our viewers should check out? Something that you like.
Ooh, that's a really open-ended question. It can be anything?
Anything. Oh yeah, I mean, we've had everything from, like I always reference, Josh Williams did the website where he orders his car parts from.
Oh, so that was like a layup?
Yeah,
Okay.
But we've had other people give us like their Netflix series that they're listening to, or a song. Do you have a favorite song? Do you listen to podcasts?
I don't really, not
Obviously,
that often.
besides this one. This one's your favorite.
I'm gonna,
of course.
favorite
no.
one ever, of course. But
Also, I'm putting the rule down now, not with you, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This is for everyone. You can no longer suggest the Dale Jr. download.
okay.
Because it's the too good of an answer. It's the correct answer. That's
Fair
the
enough.
problem.
Fair
Is
enough.
that everyone gets it right, and then I'm like, oh, you're so right, and here's another free ad, you know?
Yeah, that is a layup for sure. I was thinking about trying that as far as like what to listen to for podcasts when I'm
Yeah.
driving. So
No, I highly recommend the Dale Jr. download.
I've seen a bunch of
Highly
clips. I've
recommend
actually
it.
never watched an episode full through, but some of the guys that he's able to get on that podcast are like pretty damn impressive. I'm like, wow, they're
Some
really,
amazing stories.
Yeah,
and
really
here,
cool.
since you necessarily can't come up with an answer, I'll step in as well.
Sounds good.
You should check out his new podcast that he does with Amy, his wife. I think it's called Bless Your Heart. Thank you. Hard like Earnhardt.
Is it still racing stuff or is it sort of off the wall?
It's racing by the nature of it being Dale and Amy, but no, it's
Okay.
a lot more just like relatable
Interesting.
conversation. They talk. I saw a clip this week where Amy was talking about how Dale has a Roomba in the garage, and so she's trying to like back out of the garage, and the Roomba's escaping, and like they call the Roomba Mr. Mom. It's really
So
funny.
there's funny
See,
stories.
I literally
Yeah.
just said no free ads, and then I just gave you a whole like hilarious spiel. But truly go check it
Yeah.
out. Like they're the best.
There's
over
worse
there.
things to give free advertisements for, so it's
No
all good.
joke. There's worse people to give free ads to than Dale Jr. I'll give Dirty Mo free ads all day.
No doubt. Yeah, I don't know. I really feel like there's a lot of unsung racing series out there that people need to check out. You know, for example, I'm a big V8 supercar fan ever since they've kind of implemented their world into NASCAR. I've watched actually a fair amount of races, believe it or not. And it is really damn cool, like watching those guys. Like they're so calculated, and you know, I remember when SVG first came into NASCAR. Was it last year at Chicago or 2 years ago? Maybe
2 years ago now.
2 years ago at Chicago. And my buddy Parker, who comes from the road course world, was betting me. He's like, that guy's gonna get a top 10. And I'm like, no, he is not. Like this guy's never even been in a Cup car. No,
You almost get a little
nonetheless-
defensive. You're like,
Yeah, because I was
He's gonna come in here and-
defending the talent of,
yeah,
of the current
exactly.
Cup
You're like, you
series. I was
think he can do that?
Yeah,
Like,
you think he's
come
gonna come
on.
in here and get a top 10 like that? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no shot. And we put a bet on it, and I was like, no way he gets a top 10. And I was very confident. I was like, you're dumb. Like, you're not going to win this. Anyway, so practice gets over, and we look at the averages. We're like, okay, like, he's been on street courses before. Once they get all the cars on track, like, no way he's going to be able to compete. But since he's been on street courses before, that's why he's doing as good as he's doing. So I was like, kept making excuses for him. And then, of course, he goes out and wins the whole thing, dominates it. And I'm like, wow, like, this guy must be insane. And then you watch him compete against the other guys in V8 supercars, and he is probably the best, but there's guys that are very talented and doing the same things he is. And that kind of got me hooked on that sort of stuff. And just understanding as a race car driver how difficult it is for them to do these things and watching how good they are consistently at doing it is extremely impressive, first of all. But they also race at some really cool racetracks, like a lot of street courses, which once again is probably why SVG just took to it like that. But yeah, that's a really cool deal I would check out.
I love that suggestion. Thank you. I'm absolutely going to check out supercars. Of course, I know what it is in SVG. And
yeah, it's awesome.
But you're right. I'm gonna look into it more. And you check out Dale Jr. Download.
I will.
Add it to your queue after Rolling with the Punches.
After Rolling with the Punches.
Yeah,
that's
priorities
right. Sounds
here.
good.
Another huge takeaway, I don't know if you guys gathered this, but I definitely did. Corey is an incredible storyteller. He's really great at painting a picture and putting you in his place and kind of telling you about the emotions. Not something that I expected from him, just because I've never had the opportunity to have this kind of a conversation with him. So I really enjoyed that. And I hope that we get to hear more of Corey in this way. Obviously, we'll see plenty more of him on the racetrack being successful. So, also, speaking of feeling old, did y'all catch that I used the word swag in that interview? Because I definitely did. I was sweating a little bit after that one rolled off the tongue, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, that's all I got. Y'all know the drill. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, all those things that you do when you have a favorite podcast. This is your favorite podcast. And I appreciate you guys listening. I love you so much, Mom. I appreciate you listening. I love you so much. And to send y'all into this weekend, as always, in the wise words of my mother, just don't be a dumbass, okay? I love y'all. Bye.